because this is an awesome matchup. Like this game, French kiss, beautiful thing right here. Lines at 4, over under 63.5. We've seen a little bit of the battle on the total and inside here. Kalen DeBoer and this Washington team have done a phenomenal job this year. 9 games have been won with 10 points or less. They've been a ton of close games. They've kept their composure. They're a battle-tested team. They've been underestimated by both myself and the larger media apparatus and fans, I think. I was a guy who definitely thought Oregon was going to win that Pac-12 championship game, and Washington showed me wrong. And then you get a Texas team very high on coming to the season. Stark was fantastic. This season, I said before the season started that this was going to be the singular most important season in Texas history, Texas football history, because of their transition to the SEC and how they needed this year to go well to have proof of concept, to continue the recruiting ability that they've had in moving into the SEC. And the area that Texas has done such a superb job of getting is line play. That is the difference maker here. Like that is where there are a lot of edges that both these teams have matching up wise, but I think consistently in the trenches, Texas is certainly favored in my opinion. You look at this Texas offensive line, they're ahead of schedule. I did not think that they were going to be as good as they've been this year. I thought what the production level they're getting this year was something we were going to see next year. They've been fantastic. You have a wide receiver room that's really good. The Xavier Worthy injury is certainly noteworthy. He was in a boot. He has apparently been practicing. You're going to need him. Stark does a phenomenal job of scheming things up to get wide receivers in space. This Washington defense has been sloppy from a tackling standpoint this season, but this Washington defense has improved in the red zone. And that is significant here because Texas has done a phenomenal job of moving the ball down the field. But when they get into the red zone, they have struggled. And we have seen that struggle increase since the Jonathan Brooks injury. They're now, running back by committee, talented running back room, but an inexperienced running back room. And they have struggled. In this Washington defense, I don't know how they're going to manufacture pressure, but I don't necessarily think that's a huge concern because they have gotten better and toughened up in the red zone. This is a team that can create some havoc and turnovers. We've seen Quentin Ewers be a little bit slow to start and then really get into games. I think he's got to have a quick start. I think Texas is going to score points. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that Washington has improved over the course of the season with their red zone defense. They give up a ton of yards. I mean, they're 66th in yards per game. 66th in yards per play. I apologize. 93rd in yards given up per game. But the red zone defense, but they're not that bad when it comes to points scored and allowing conversions. So Texas is going to be able to move the ball. Can they score in the red zone consistently is going to be a huge thing here for them. But I think they absolutely have an advantage in the trenches. I don't know what the game plan is going to be for Washington outside of the red zone, because if you bring pressure, you're leaving your secondary exposed, who has had a tough time tackling in space this season. You have a Stark offense that does a phenomenal job of scheming guys up to get into space. Xavier Worthy, if he is near healthy, is going to be huge. If he's not, that is a game changer for sure. Flip the ball. Washington has benefited immensely from this break. I had speculated based on the way Penix had been playing that he was dealing with some type of injury. We now know that he was playing through a broken rib. You've got guys like Johnson and McMillan who have been playing through injuries. This is an interesting matchup because the Texas secondary is certainly their liability standpoint. And they have a phenomenal defensive front. This is an SEC caliber defensive line. Sweat and Murphy are legit bona fide guys. This is obviously an insane offensive line for Washington, but this Washington offensive line has not seen a defensive line like this. The closest thing you have is maybe a Utah from a physicality standpoint. And we saw that Utah had some success from the defensive standpoint. Texas has to be able to get natural pressure so they can drop more guys back and help that secondary, because this is a team in Washington that is loaded at the wide receiver position. Just unreal. And I think, if you had to say, which team do you have more faith in if they get behind to come back from, it's this Washington team. It's Penix, who has been a calm, cool field general out there. this season, in a wide receiver room that is explosive. And we even saw it in the Oregon game. Like, they weren't getting these huge down the field explosive plays. What they were doing was getting guys open in space with shorter intermediary passes and then letting the wide receivers do the work there. And they were very successful in that. What I do not like is that there seems to be some ideas floated out by the Washington offensive staff that they're going to try to have more balance. That I do not think is a recipe for success. You cannot run on this Texas defense. You just can't do it. There are the teams that have been successful in doing that have had mobile quarterbacks. You saw it in like the Oklahoma game where Dylan Gabriel got involved in the rushing game. That's about it. Or like garbage time. You can't run against this Texas defense. You just can't do it. So, the worst thing I think Washington could do is try to be really balanced early and flip it late. Like, you have to be willing to keep up with Texas if they score points. I think this is an over game. I took the over right away. I think both these games are over games. I think if you wanted to tease Alabama, Washington would not be the worst idea in the world. I do think we're going to have a Michigan, Texas championship, but I would not be shocked if Washington pulled this. I have underrated them a little bit, but I think all things considered, the trenches edge, and I know how good the Washington offensive line has been. But let's not devalue this Texas defensive line, which has been spectacular. Top 3, in my opinion, in college football this season. That's going to be an awesome battle within the battle. I cannot wait to watch that Washington offensive line go out and compete against this Texas defensive line. That's going to be a fantastic battle. It's probably going to be the game decider, if we're being honest about it. Penix has been phenomenal at eluding pressure. You have not been able to sack him this season, really. He's been fantastic, spectacular. I think a live betting situation is certainly in play here. Let's see if Texas gets out to a fast start. If Ewers is firing early, that is certainly going to be in Texas's favor. But Washington can certainly come back. I like an over here. I like a Washington maybe in a teaser. I don't hate the idea of sprinkling something on the Washington side. This is probably going to be a field goal team. That's the other, I guess, part is the special teams there. But this is something. This is going to be an awesome game. It's going to be an awesome game. That's how I kind of see these games breaking down. That's sort of my thoughts on these games. We might tweet out some additional picks, maybe player props. So make sure you are paying attention to our socials at Trophy Kids Podcast. I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for the support you guys have shown this season, for hanging in there. I am glad we could have yet another winning college football season. 48-29 on the season. Nice 58%. 4th year in a row of a winning, higher than 56% win percentage. We fell underneath our goal of 60%, but 58 is not bad. Let's hopefully end it strong here. I want to thank you again. Your support means the world to me. We're going to continue to bring you football content in the offseason this season. We're going to break down all the big teams, the movements going on, transfer portal news, everything that's been happening. Thank you. Thank you again for your support. Hopefully you get your friends and family involved. We want to grow our viewership base, obviously. Make sure to follow us at Trophy Kids Podcast on TikTok, at Trophy Kids Pod on Instagram and Twitter for additional content. And as always, peace.